want you to face the battle alone. Join us at woundedwarriorproject.com.
Nick's not coming.
ADHD. It's the child who can't pay attention or sit still in school, right? The answer may be
We
yes.
should have like 10 guests in a
Attention
row
deficit
coming on after this.
hyperactivity
We have this
disorder
like this
or
network group that's
ADHD
finally
can
launching,
be
so
complicated and
it'll
it can
solve.
last a lifetime. Living with a condition can sometimes be a challenge. It may take years to accept a formal diagnosis, and it's not always easy to find the right treatment plan. Did you know that up to 75% of children and adolescents with ADHD have at least one additional mental health condition that also requires a comprehensive approach to treatment? ADHD guidelines were recently updated to reflect the need to screen for associated disorders. Be sure to talk with your child's doctor about proper screening and visit more2adhd.com for additional
I was
information.
at that meeting when I left where people actually come up with plans. They just
more2adhd.com.
bullshitting the entire
This
time.
message has been brought to you in
I think so.
partnership with
It
ADA,
was
ACO,
what
and
you and
CHAD.
were kind of back where
Good, all right, that's all.
Coming back with the City Center Convenience Mart. Heather's moment has arrived, and you just hope all that training pays off. Heather lays down her purchase, but Randy brings it up as slowly as he can. Uh-oh.
Connor.
Yeah, she's looking
Connor,
at
what
the
is that?
cigarette. Nothing good
He's
back
been here a
there.
while.
Heather's arm is in
drive,
motion.
though. I'm
She
so bad
just
at
grabs
that.
the
We
gun
need
off the
new tags
counter.
for
That's a
sure.
slip
I
move.
would not
Even
mind that
Randy
now.
tips his cap.
Yeah,
to
I
Heather.
agree.
She's
General,
the
like,
cancer
I
plan.
wouldn't
They
mind
want
either,
you to
but I
reduce
think a
your
lot of
risk
people
for
would
cancer. Go to takeahealthystand.org.
I just confidently say people's names.
I like hanging out with you guys because it's the same problem.
Kind of.
Be safe, look out for yourself, and look
But
out
yeah,
for
no,
one
we
another.
were
Go to
talking
first
about all
glad.
kinds of stuff. Yeah.
Brian's like, dude, they don't
And help
plan.
us
I'm like, I'm
help
just
them.
doing it.
I'm Ben Affleck, and I want to thank
Much
you
better
for
everyone else
joining
talks
me
to,
and
like-
supporting paralyzed veterans.
You
Yeah,
guys
you
know
can
the
bounce
drill.
in it's
I
smaller
just
groups
don't
you can
think
bounce
my
Yeah.
ideas
family would
off.
be as
Yeah,
happy
you
as they
know.
are
Some people are afraid to like talk.
without the
Like,
support that I received from.
Brian has his hands full with the
Go to
at the
pva.org
offer
to
writing.
learn
Or,
more.
yeah, the offer writing. I don't know
offer
how-
writing's tough. Like, I mean,
Yeah, that is.
WWDB.
that's a good idea. We're not that neighborhood though, Sarah.
Yeah.
The talk station.
Good afternoon, greater Philadelphia area. This is Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM. I'm Tom Toole, she's Sarah Time, and she's Stacy Mitchell, and we all work at the Tom Toole Sales Group at RE/MAX Mainline, the #1 RE/MAX team in Pennsylvania since 2018, and we're streaming live every week on YouTube specifically. So if you like what you hear or you want to keep up to date, make sure to click on the bell for notifications, subscribe to the channel. We're going to be talking about Warren Buffett now getting roped into the commission lawsuits. We've got some legalities around how buyers can pay a commission while not having the additional cash out of pocket cost. But first, we're going to be talking about how inventory is growing and buyer affordability. So before I get into the stats, ladies, one of the biggest complaints we have heard, I think since we started doing the show, is that there's nothing for sale in the market, which we know isn't true. It's not a lot of stale inventory sitting on the market. How does it feel in the marketplace right now for you and your clients? I've got some data here. We're seeing inventory grow, but what's the general census for buyers in the marketplace right now, or sellers that have to go buy a home?
I think it's been positive. I mean, I think every day when I'm looking on like the hot sheets, it's more is coming. Now a lot of them are going quickly, so you know they're not hanging out on the market. But new things every day. I think it's positive.
I do too. I see the inventory increase. If you talk to clients though, they're not seeing it.
Right.
They would really like more choices.
Mhm.
They would like to be able to go out on a weekend and see numerous homes instead of just the one popped up and everybody's hyper focused on it. And
Right.
there turns out to be 8 to 10 offers. So I think for clients, they might argue that the inventory is increasing. But yeah, when the hot sheet comes on and I look at it, it's like, oh, look at that. And I think of people and I can send it to people.
Yep.
And so we're seeing that little boost, which is really, really positive.
So, I mean, statistically, we're seeing this as well, that in the Philadelphia metro area, we're seeing a 4.3% increase in inventory just so far this year. We've seen supply grow a lot, so there are more options coming to the market. And I don't know if we're ever going to go back to not having competitive bids. I think that's one of the challenges here. What we're seeing nationally right now is that inventory is continuing to grow. We saw inventory jump up again the last week of February into March 1st. This time last year, we were seeing inventory decreasing substantially. So just to give some perspective, we saw the number of homes for sale change from 497,608 to 498,339. So about 1,000 new homes, a little less than that, closer to 700. But this time last year, we saw inventory fall from 430,395 homes to 419,419 homes. So a pretty dramatic drop that was happening. And I don't even know that we've scratched the surface yet, because we're in this typical seasonal market. I would be keeping my eyes on March, April, May, when we know that, this is when inventory typically runs up. And if you look at just our statistics in the MLS, just over the past week, we saw almost 1,000 new homes come to the market in Chester, Montgomery, Delaware counties, Philadelphia, as well as Bucks, which we didn't really see that at all last year. It was like 500, 600 maybe. So this to me is good. And then there's the question of how do people search. But Stacey, I don't think you're ever going to get away from these competitive situations for these homes. And it's really like that move up home. That's the one I see the biggest challenge with, where it's like a 4-bedroom, single family home, nothing sold in there in a year. Is that kind of what you're seeing as well? That's where you had a home over the weekend you told me about. I think it sold like $300,000 above the asking price.
Yeah.
I don't see that changing anytime soon until we see much more inventory come to the market. But the question here isn't, are we going to see these competitive bids happen? Because that's always happened throughout history. Why are we seeing inventory grow in a higher rate environment? That's the question I have for both of you two, because we're not seeing rates go down. They're kind of hanging in that like 6 and 7/8 range. So what are people telling you? What are you hearing on the ground? I've got some data to back this up, but this is something a lot of people don't expect. They thought less homes would come to the market with higher rates, and we're seeing more.
I think that people have finally come to terms with the market as far as sellers are concerned. They realize that there's no really perfect time, and that if they've been waiting, they're tired of waiting. So now it is the perfect time, because there is an abundance of buyers. So they still have, the lock on the market as far as being a very aggressive seller's market. So if it's priced accordingly, they can get multiple offers and pick and choose the best for them.
Right.
So it's the best time for sellers. For buyers, I do agree with you, Tom. I don't see a way out of this competitive market, this multiple offer situation. And I have to say, though, it's over all the price points.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's everywhere. And even the investors are competitive. It's crazy when you have investors who notoriously are like, no, I'm not overpaying.
Right.
They're jumping in with escalation clauses.
That's unusual for
Yeah.
sure.
So it's unusual, but they want to park their money.
Right.
They want to get in on the rental. Either they're getting in or they're adding to their portfolio.
Mhm.
And they're tired of waiting too. They're like, it is what it is. It's going to be this. And, they're tired of sitting on the sidelines.
Right. And I mean, and I would agree that it's across all price points, because I have clients that are buyers in all different buckets, and I had an offer in over the weekend. We were one of 10 offers, and we were somewhat competitive, more so than they've ever been. This client has ever been on previous offers, based off of all the comps and everything. I indicated where I thought it would go, and that's pretty much where it did. But still, I think it hit the market on Friday. We got our offer in Sunday. They made the decision Monday, and just those couple days there, 10 offers in, and it was crowded when we went. There were people waiting to get in, people that had just seen it. So, for properties that are either turnkey or it's mostly cosmetic, they're moving quick.
Well, and that's always the challenge. Is I'm a big believer. There's still, I don't want to say deals, but opportunities in the market, no matter what the conditions are. You're talking about the move-in ready, really sexy looking home that's like, wow, I got, it's all done. I don't have to do anything. There's always going to be competition for that home, provided that it's priced right.
Mm-hmm.
And that's never going to change. And that's all the more reason that, if you're a seller right now and you're starting to see this inventory grow a little bit, you don't want to be on the back end of this. And not even from an inventory growth perspective, but waiting, because there's going to be a finite window here. I am really clear on this, that this is the first time in a long time, meaning like pre-2020, we're going to see the market slow down after 4th of July. We're going to see a lot of people go on vacation and get into that seasonal flow, which a lot of people don't really get. And it's all the more reason, we're seeing this because everyone's talking about, okay, this is what spring was like. Every single year I practice real estate, there'd be some homes that sell, some homes that don't, and some that are super competitive. And this is a normal market, and we're starting to see that with inventory grow. And I'm a big believer inventory should grow some more. I'm very pro inventory here because it gives people options. We know rates aren't going down, and because rates are staying where they are you still hearing affordability concerns? Because there's some data out there that the income needed to buy a home has jumped 80% since 2020. That's mind-blowing numbers here. Are you hearing this from home buyers, or are those people just bowed out at this point?
I think, those people have bowed out, I believe.
Yeah.
The folks that I'm working with now, we know what they can get into.
Mhm.
Each property is kind of specific to what the taxes are, so I always have to do calculations to see if it's gonna work. But they're not talking about affordability. We're focused in on that monthly payment.
Yep.
And what they need to get into the home, and that's it. And we're just going out and trying to find that home and put the offers in.
Yeah.
They're hyper focused.
Yeah.
Which that's what I like. They're motivated enough. This is really their full-time job is looking for this house.
Yeah.
It should be.
And responsive and
Mhm.
yeah, I've got, I think the people that are winning in this market are the ones that have a little bit of flexibility. I'm like, in my head right now, I'm thinking of 2 different clients that have been great. One, like the location needs to be very specific, and like, yes, the monthly payment and everything needs to be specific, but they're open to different levels of condition of property and understand how that lays out. Then I've got another one who is more flexible on location, but wants something a little bit more turnkey. But as things pop up, they're super responsive. We're looking at the coming soon so that we can get that scheduled for the day that it hits the market. And I think being realistic about, there's a couple pieces that go into this, and it's going to be the condition of the property, the location, and how much money you have. And that those 3 pieces make up what you can get. And, it's not going to just suddenly change.
I agree.
So, and you talked about what they're looking for, and I think we talked about this a million times, like what's actually a top prospect for our real estate friends that are listening. And in my view, one, they've got to communicate with you. Like, there's got to be 2-way communication. Secondly, they have to know what they want, but they may not know what they want when they first meet you. Like, does this develop for some of these people?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for people that I've had the most success with are ones that maybe are like, I could go townhouse, I could go single family, I could do this, I could do that. And then my typical response is, great, let's look at each of them, and then we'll know as you get into them, you can kind of narrow down from there. So like, yes, let's look at them all.
Yeah, I think at first when you're just getting started, they might have a general idea what they're looking for, but it could totally change when they're looking at homes.
Yeah.
And they're willing to concede after a while on certain points. Okay, we don't need a fenced-in yard. We can eventually put a fence in.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, we accept if we have to update a bathroom or 2. I have some people going, they definitely wanted 2 bathrooms. Now they're down to 1, and they'll try to put 1 in at a later time. So I think the concessions happen, as time goes on and offers are not being accepted. So they broaden their outlook. So I think that's going to lead to success if they're willing to go outside of their first and foremost parameters and expand their search criteria. That's going to be successful.
Yeah, because it happens so often when you're working with clients that, like, from what they initially said, like, this is what we need, they end up getting under contract for something very different. So you also have to, like, while we need flexibility from them in some cases, like, we have to be open-minded to it too, to like still present them with some options that aren't maybe what they initially said, and just using some of that language of this might not be for you, but like, it's my job to put things in front of you, and kind of show them how that home could be what they're looking for.
Well, and Stacey, you mentioned focusing on monthly payment, because the reality is buyer affordability is a bit of a challenge right now. And if you look at this data that came out, this is from a Zillow report, that today's home buyer needs to earn a minimum of roughly $106,500 a year to afford a home purchase, $47,000 more than 4 years ago. And this report highlights the disparity between wage growth and the increase in the cost of buying a home. And, wages just haven't kept up. I mean, you're seeing 80% more than what folks needed in 2020. The median U.S. household income has only grown by 23%. So there are some people that are priced out of the market now, or they're locked in probably more than ever because of where rates have come in. And, if you're one of those people making less than $106,000 a year, it's going to pay to be open-minded when it comes to the covering the cost of a home purchase. And you may need to look at gifts from families, grant programs. There's K-Fit out there in Philadelphia as an example. And you really have to do your research and connect with the right agent that can help you. Gifts or loans, co-buying or getting someone to co-sign as a relative. We've seen more of that happen. The big thing, though, has been gifts from parents. I've seen that probably more than ever. Are you seeing the same rise in that, especially if their parents are in that like baby boomer generation, which controls 1/7, 1/8 of the world's wealth?
I've seen parents come in as either co-signers or they're, coming in with a large down payment to help the buyers, or they're coming in to be able to present a cash offer, but then the kids will make the monthly payments to the parents.
Yeah.
Which, wow, could you imagine?
And I've seen that before all this, by the way. I mean, sometimes this happens because people typically do try to help their kids out with a home purchase.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good way to get them started, but it's been more than ever, for sure.
Yeah, I've noticed more, down payment money coming from parents, and that's also why it doesn't hurt to kind of present that as an option. And you never know what people's families' financial situations are. Certainly, that's not something that everybody can go and ask for. I mean, it's a lot of money, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if sometimes they don't even think of that, and then it's like, oh, you know what, they would, or oh, they did do that for my sister, and even if it's something where you're paying them back later, when you need the money now, just kind of giving them options.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's something that, and a good agent's going to suggest all this stuff, because if you're not able to find properties that people can afford, it becomes a problem. And there's certain metro markets that cater to this more than others. I mean, there's a map here. So what's the lowest and the highest? So here's a surprise, right? The 5 highest places that it costs to buy a home and affordability is San Jose, San Francisco, LA, San Diego, Seattle. Shocking, right? Here's the lowest. What are some of the guesses on lowest? You can't read the article.
Somewhere in Ohio.
Okay, that's number 2, right? Or number 3. So Pittsburgh is number 1, which is right next to Ohio, so that's pretty close.
Yeah.
Cleveland is number 3. Memphis, Tennessee, New Orleans, and Birmingham. And I think it just shows to the cost of living is different in a lot of places, right? And so the whole point of this here is that, and what agents need to be careful about is that, we're seeing prices aren't going to go the other way. And I don't see rates coming down. I mean, maybe we get to the 5s. I was just at the Tom Ferry Elite Retreat last week, and he's talking about the year of 5. I don't know if we're going to see 5s this year. I mean, especially the way the market's going. If it would have continued going down, that's fine. But we've seen rates kind of bubble up a little bit. Maybe the end of the year, and I'm talking 5.99.
Right.
Not 5.5 or anything like that. I mean, that's fine if that happens. You've got to deal with what you know now, and agents, I think that you got to be careful in saying rates will come down later in the year, because even if rates come down, there was some data out there. We went over it yesterday at a team training where it talks about that Fannie Mae's predicting best case scenario we could see a 30% jump in prices by 2028. That number's not going down. So you got to be very mindful of what's happening here. So what do you do when people are saying let's wait, or they're because all this data tells us one thing, but there's still people that talk to their Uncle Johnny at Thanksgiving dinner that they're going to try to outthink the market, which we know is not going to work. Or do you just let those people get there on their own? It's a big question here.
I think it's kind of it can be case by case for because you have some people that have come up with a reason not to move forward for so long that at that point yes, still stay in touch, still put properties in front of them, but understand that that's maybe not somebody that will ever transact. And then I think for others, just kind of asking questions, what where are you getting this info? Let's say that is what happens, what will you do then? So if let's explore the option of holding off and potentially just not buying. What does that look like for you? You know, and kind of finding out what the hesitation really is, because it can be different than what they're telling you.
Yeah, I think the more questions you ask to find out where they are getting their information, like why do you think, it would be beneficial to wait a couple of years? Where do you think the home prices will be then, and why? Why do you think they'll be there? Because that is key. Because there's no indication in the data in the past couple of years that indicate prices of homes are going to go down.
Right.
There's none, no data, and we can't control the interest rates. And where I thought we would be year of the 5 this year, I don't think so.
Right.
I really don't. I think that's not happening. Inflation is still not in a good place as per the feds, and the job market is very robust. So there's no motivation for the Fed to make a move on the interest rates.
Right.
And it's election year, so they really don't want to tinker too much for fear of,
They don't
causing
want
something.
They don't want to over tinker.
Yeah, they don't want to. They over tinker enough.
Yeah.
So I think they're just gonna lay low and not do a whole lot with the rates this year. So I think it's gonna stay the same. And I tell my clients, as one home comes on the market, gets under contract and closes,
It's a comp.
it's a comp, and they just keep going higher and higher, and that's why.
Right.
So when you explain it to them that simply, it makes sense. It's like, of course, yeah, it does become a comp.
Right.
Because some people don't understand why the prices are going up, but that's what happens. People are, competing against other buyers, and in doing so, they're going over asking price. Once that house closes, then the neighbors are like, "Hey, Joe and Sally got the house."
Value of your home just
right.
went up. Yeah.
And they put the sign in their yard, and they list it for whatever the other house closed or around
Right.
that price.
Right.
So I agree with everything you're saying, and I think that that's really important. And here's the thing is that you're not going to get people to do things for their reason, for any other reason other than theirs. And if you ever tried to coach motivation with a client, it just doesn't happen. People are either going to be motivated or they're not. Logan Motoshami was talking, I think we shared this at one of our team meetings, where he said, hey, if a buyer asks if they should buy a home right now, you know what? They're not ready. Because the people that are ready, they're not asking you. They're telling you what they're going to do because they've done their research, they've understood the market, and they've figured it all out. So what I'm clear on is that if you don't feel like your people are motivated, you got to have high volume conversations right now. You got to meet more people. It's the simple rule of thumb in real estate, because if you're trying to convince someone to buy a house, it never works out, right? I mean, you're trying to sell them something. I'm a believer homes sell themselves, and you guide people through the process. And in a climate like this, where we're seeing, there was an article on Now BAM that came out today that there's 100+ housing experts see increased home price growth and 6% mortgages in 2024. This is what's happening. It's not anything different than that. So you can fight this as much as you want, but some people are going to transact, some won't. You got to find the ones that will, that actually want your advice. Because if people don't want to listen to you, it's a waste of your time.
I think a lot of people don't like the information.
Right.
So it's like, I'm sorry, but this is what it is.
Right.
And I know you don't like it. Most people don't like it,
Yeah.
but this is the reality.
Right.
And that's our job,
Right.
Sarah, is to provide the
Right.
data, the actual information, and
Right.
people just don't like it. So, and it's hard. It is hard, but it's not impossible,
Right.
and
Mhm.
we can get it done.
Right. Absolutely.
Well, and you want to say things like, hey, the good news is we do this all the time.
Yep.
This is easy. We understand the process. We just need to help you get there. And when you focus on things like that, it goes a lot better for you. So the advice here, even though inventory is increasing, which is an opportunity, I'd be shouting from the rooftops about that. I'd be talking about rates settling in. I'd be talking about sales activity in neighborhoods, a lot of the stuff we talk about internally here. And then from there, what you want to do is find the people that actually want to listen to what you're saying. Because if they're not, then they're not the right person for you. So with that in mind, let's take a quick break. We're going to come back. We're going to talk about the next iteration of this commission lawsuit. Now Warren Buffett's involved, out of all people. Very, very interesting. We'll be right back on Toole Time, Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM.
service and great rates on your
I don't
money,
have, like, a
look
30
no
seconds, maybe
further
we just
than
straight
Mortgage
on, see if
America.
it pops
We've
up.
been operating in the greater Philadelphia area for 40 years with a focus on smooth, easy access to home purchasing. Whether you're a first-time buyer, upsizing or downsizing, or just refinancing, we have programs for you. We also have closing cost assistance programs and access to subsidized interest rates. Pre-approval is free, no costs or commitments. To learn more, visit our website at mymortgageamerica.com or give us a call at 610-439-8000. We always have a person available to take your call with around-the-clock human service. Purchase your home with the personalized, local service you find at Mortgage America.
Mortgage America is the equal housing lender, NMLS 128501.
When you're getting a mortgage, you shouldn't have to sacrifice great service just to get a great rate. At Mortgage America, we've been lending with this philosophy for over 35 years. We have access to great low rates without the complications and delays of big or online banks. We're a local Pennsylvania lender with loan officers that you can actually meet. As PHFA's #1 lender, we specialize in all residential mortgage programs, including first-time buyer programs and low down payment options. For your free pre-approval, call us at 610-439-8000 or apply online at mymortgageamerica.com.
Mortgage America is the equal housing lender, NMLS 128501.
I'm Tom Toole of the Tom Toole Sales Group at RE/MAX Main Line. If you're thinking of becoming a real estate agent in the greater Philly area, I have a special offer for you. Our team did $165 million of volume in 2021, making us the #1 RE/MAX team in Pennsylvania and a top 1% team nationally. Our agents love us because we offer them a
Should be
successful
over that
career,
guy from
a
last night.
great life, and an unbeatable
When we leave.
culture.
You can get back to
Agents
me. I
who've
don't
been
want
with
to
us
know.
for at
I
least a
see it.
year
I'm gonna loop you on
average
the
30+ sales.
Right, it
Even
hasn't-
our brand new agents
Check,
average
check. She might be
17 to
dead from
24
one.
sales a year. We offer proven
I'm kidding,
systems
but-
and expert
Oh,
training.
hope not.
We help you set
I
more
can't get hold of
appointments
her.
and sell more houses.
I
Now,
tried her
here's
like
the offer.
twice.
If you
and-
don't have a real estate license yet, we offer real estate
Love.
scholarships
And I
so you
didn't
can get one
I
for
didn't
free.
want to like. 'cause I was
Check
actually
it
gonna
out
bring
at
her a casserole the other week, and I
scholarshipprogram.com
didn't want
or
to
visit the
like.
Tom Toole
I'm
sales
glad
team
you've
at
had
RE/MAX
success with that.
Main Line
That's
at
never worked for me.
tomtoole.com. That's
But also she said, like, I don't know how she's
tomtoole.com.
getting her food.
Get more out of your real estate career, and remember the real
She,
estate
like,
goes
doesn't-
I don't know.
You
I
always
don't know
get
if she
more
wants
when
to
you
tell
work
me.
with Tom
She's,
Toole.
like, kind of
Have you
like
considered
that.
a career
You know
in
what I mean?
real estate?
She's
You
like,
want control over
There's
your
like, I work
income.
with
10 seconds.
difficult people.
Since you're not, call us today at 610-692-6976 or visit tomtoole.com. Join our
If you're not
team
working with
the
difficult
Tom
clients, you
Toole
don't have
Sales
no
Group.
clients.
Stand by. Line.
Most people are like, I'm Welcome back to Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM. I'm Tom Toole. She's Stacy Mitchell. She's Sarah Time, and we all work at the Tom Toole Sales Group at RE/MAX Main Line, the #1 RE/MAX team in Pennsylvania since 2018. And we're going to be covering Warren Buffett now getting pulled into the commission lawsuits. This just keeps going here, which is very fascinating on many levels. If you like what you hear, you'll learn something from this. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, tap on the bell for notifications, and if you want to schedule a call with one of these two ladies on our amazing team to talk about how any of this might affect your real estate plans, click on the link in the comments. So the commission lawsuits, it feels like every week there's something happening around them. I mean, it's one after another after another. Redfin was pulled in California. We can chat on that a little bit. But the big news, this one was interesting to me. This caught my eye, is that the legendary billionaire CEO of Berkshire Hathaway, Warren Buffett, is now at the center of one of the commission lawsuits. So there was an amended complaint filed yesterday in the Gibson commission lawsuit, which is in Missouri, by Michael Ketchmark. That's when it was filed. And the attorney for the plaintiffs, he's also the Sitzer Burnett suit. They added the Berkshire Hathaway Energy Company to the list of defendants. And his firm owns 92% of Berkshire Hathaway Energy Company, and the real estate firm Home Services is a subsidiary of that company. So they're all related here. Now, the Home Services of America, they're not a defendant in the Gibson suit, but they are a defendant in the Sitzer Burnett suit, and they were found liable for colluding with NAR and the other real estate industry players to artificially inflate agent commissions. So is this even on Warren Buffett's radar? That's my first question. Is he paying attention to this? Is he worried about it? Is he not worried about it? And then we can kind of unpack this as we go into this a little more, because these things are clearly not going away. The DOJ obviously has put their nose into this here. Is Warren Buffett worried here? What do you two think? There's no article you can read on this, by the way, Sarah.
I
to
would
get the
say
answer.
I would think it's on his radar. He's aware of what's going on, but I don't know that he would be particularly worried. Would be my guess.
Yeah, it's
I don't know
definitely
him.
on his
I don't know
radar.
him personally, but that's
I
how I
know
feel he
him.
would think.
Well, you know, he's a smart man, so I'm sure this is on his radar.
Mhm.
But I'm not sure how concerned he is with this. I'm not surprised that they've been added to the lawsuit because there's been big settlements. So wherever there's settlements and money to be found, there's going to be claims. So I think this was just a matter of time that they were added to the lawsuit. And my guess would be that they're going to settle.
Yeah,
Just wrap it up and be done with it.
I would imagine Berkshire Hathaway is prepared for a settlement. And looking at these lawsuits, I'm a big believer from talking to some legal experts that the reason why they settled for the amounts they did, because the amounts are all over the place, it's related to insurance coverage and what they can get out of the insurance companies, period. Because in all these statements from Michael Ketchmark, what he said is, I believe we got as much as we could. I believe we got as much as we could. Well, the biggest company here, it's not necessarily Home Services, it's the parent company, right? You've got, Remax is their own independent company. We've got Keller Williams, they settled. They don't have a parent company like Berkshire Hathaway Energy, right? So I would imagine that there is a war chest set aside for these companies to settle the suit, because every time you go in front of a jury, you don't know what's going to happen, and that may leave NAR standing here, which is a problem. The reason they're roping them in is because they want more money. That's what they want here. I mean, I'm clear that's exactly what's going on. So, and in the amended complaint, you can look at what Michael Ketchmark said. He notes that Berkshire Hathaway Energy Company considers Home Services employees as their own, and that the firm should not have expanded or acquired as many real estate firms as it did without the financial backing of Berkshire Hathaway Energy Company. The complaint also alleges that the firm has used Buffett's profile and image as a halo effect to create consumer trust in the firm, saying that it used this halo effect to further the alleged conspiracy. So I Googled halo effect just to understand what exactly he's talking about here, and that's the tendency for positive impressions of a person, company, country, brand, or product in one area to influence one's opinion. So it's basically like a third-party endorsement, right? We got election season coming up, so get used to that. And, due to the allege of Berkshire Hathaway engaging in price fixing by using our nation's MLS system as a vehicle to fix the number of commissions that a homeowner has to pay, that's where they're coming from here. I mean, this is aggressive language. I don't know that it's surprising, but they're the biggest company out of all these companies. I mean, that's really what it comes down to.
Yeah. I mean, I think, like Warren Buffett is a very smart, very well-known businessman that I think people do think of as like an ethical person, and they like go look at different things that he's written and like kind of what he does and how he operates. And I think that using that, like being like, oh, you're misleading people with the halo effect, like, no, that's the image that people have of him because of all of his years of business and all of the things that he's done and all of the success that he has. So putting him as the face of it when it is his company makes sense. I think, like, I don't know. I feel like that's kind of,
isn't that what a lot of people do?
Right. That's what I feel like they're just like throwing stuff at the wall to see what sticks.
Yeah. And this is definitely the biggest fish
Right.
in the pond.
Right.
So if you can get a piece of this, that's why they brought the suit. That's why they included them in the lawsuit. They had success in getting other companies to settle.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And put pressure on Warren Buffett and his companies. And like you said, Tom, I'm sure they're ready for this.
Right.
I'm sure they were not ill prepared.
Right. Well, and I think that everything is like, it's business. So they're going to evaluate will it cost us, whether or not we are in the wrong or feel as though we've done anything wrong, is it going to cost us less money to just pay this out and move on, or to fight it and have it like tie things up and drag out? And, I think it'll just come down to what's going to save us the most money.
Right. Exactly. In the long run. And the other companies that have settled,
Same thing.
did the same thing.
Right. And it wasn't them
They
saying
waited
they
it
did
out.
anything wrong.
Yep.
It was just like, we'll just pay it.
Right.
Let's move on.
Yeah, and so I mean I think this is I get the move here, and you know there's all these other suits that are popping up all over the place, and I just you look at these companies here, and I think that, you know, the big question is, I mean, you saw Nick Bailey got ousted as Remax CEO. I mean, I'm clear that that's what happened there. I was very disappointed in that, by the way. I like Nick. I met him a couple times. I thought he had a pretty good vision. They also settled. They lost money. I get it. Then you got, you know, Berkshire Hathaway. They're talking about looping in Warren Buffett now on these suits. You have, you know, Keller Williams had to settle. I mean, I'm just wondering here what this means for the future of some of these big box brokerages. Like, is one of them poised to fail here because they're getting sucked in? A lot of cash is getting sucked out of these companies. Is there the opportunity for disruption? Because if you look at like what Ryan Serhant has said and some other people, he went independent to be more nimble. And but do the settlements get you protection being with a big company? There's all these questions that I have about this, because if the settlement gives you protection and you're with a KW or a Remax or somebody else that settled, then I probably want to be with them versus an independent a brokerage that gets named in one of these suits that could bankrupt you. I mean, that could be the end for that brokerage. The flip side is if it doesn't give you protection and you're a new entity, are you liable? Like, how does this all work? So, I mean, do you think one of these companies actually goes down here? I mean, I think, you know, because we've seen this with accounting firms. We've seen, like, when there used to be, like, the big five, and now it's the big four accounting firms, right? Like, so there's a lot of questions I got about this, because I don't see any one of these people stopping. Like, these lawsuits are going to continue until there's, like, a ruling on this. Maybe the DOJ has something to do with that. I don't know.
That's all really good questions that I hadn't even thought of.
Yeah. I mean, I think they're like the first people that they were primarily going after. I'm assuming they knew they had the money, because like, what's the point of going after somebody that can't pay for it? But then as the suits continue and they start adding more and more people on, I feel like there could be, you know, brokerages or like smaller pieces that get run over by it, you know, and that maybe could be looking at like a bankrupt situation, because as they start throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what'll stick and grabbing, you know, adding everybody into it, I think it certainly could affect some of the smaller players.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So then there's, so I wouldn't be surprised if one of these companies has some challenges, because I mean, you're seeing these astronomical amounts that they're settling for. Now it seems like every large brokerage that has like a corporate entity has been looped in. So it could happen, right? I think this DOJ objection in Massachusetts is going to be pretty telling what happens there. They still got to go to court and go through all that. And you've got to be prepared as an agent to be able to deal with this. We've talked about this at length. I mean, you've got to know how you're getting paid, what the rules of engagement are, what's going to be best for your client, and how all that blends together to actually get them into the property. Now, with that, let's say they do decouple commissions, and there's a lot of issues that come up, because if a buyer has to pay, right, you're a VA buyer, you're screwed. You can't pay that on the sheet. You have to, I mean, you're going to have to pay that out of pocket. And a lot of VA buyers going with 100% financing anyway, and they're financing the closing costs on top of it. So that's one challenge. So then what I did, I talked to a lender that we work with pretty closely. I had them go to the C-level execs at his bank. What can we do if a buyer wants to pay buyer commission on the buyer side? And what is available there? What can we roll it into a seller's assist? Because this has been the big question that's come up. So here is the definitive answer as of the end of last month. Obviously, we need to see some law change. So FNMA, right? That's a normal, you know, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac loan. They will allow a buyer paid commission up to the normal limits of seller assist, which means up to 6% on a 90% loan to value ratio. So what that means is you can get up to a 6% concession when you're putting 10% down. And below that, and so if you're putting more down, that's fine. If the loan to value ratio goes down, 3% assist is the maximum at greater than 90% loan to value ratio. So if you're putting less than 10% down, you can get up to a 3% concession. So you could hypothetically put a buyer commission there at X% and roll that into the financing.
But you're like putting that as a seller assist.
No, you can. So you have the buyer agent commission. Let's say it's a flat number. Let's say it's $5,000, right? Yeah. Hypothetical. Let's say it's just the number two, like whatever it is. And I don't want to get into talking commissions here. So that becomes a cost on the buyer side. They can then finance as sellers assist. No different than transfer tax, than title fees, than mortgage fees, right? So that's one option. So they're coming up with less cash. They're basically paying it on a monthly payment. That's really what it is.
Okay.
So you're allowed to do that with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac loans. FHA will not allow it, which is the people that probably need it the most.
Yeah.
VA is a hard no. And they're not going to allow it either because they're looking at protecting the veterans and don't want that to come off of that. But the challenge here is then these people can't have representation. So,
Right.
or they can, but someone's got to work for free. I'm sure none of these attorneys would work for free. Michael Ketchmark sure as hell isn't working for free.
Right.
So this has created a problem now for something that was passed because a buyer literally has to like write a check outside of the settlement, which is we're not supposed to do anyway. Everything's supposed to be on the settlement sheet. So
Right, because I feel like that could then get hairy with like,
Mm-hmm.
because like the nice thing about having everything on the sheet is that everything gets resolved right there at the table. What if you get to the table and your client that you've represented through this process, who was supposed to pay you out of pocket there, doesn't?
Mm-hmm.
Do they not get the house then? Like, or do you then have to be a collection person, like hounding them? Like,
Yeah, I just see a whole lot going wrong.
yeah,
Just a whole lot of room for corruption and all kinds of crazy
Right.
things we can't even comprehend at this point
right.
is going to happen.
Oh, checks in the mail.
Or yeah,
Yeah.
just ridiculous stuff. Just shady stuff going on.
Yeah.
Which is the whole reason why we kind of had the.
all charges are supposed to be on the Alta or settlement sheet. That is
Right.
very clear. And so now they've created this environment where, and then again, the challenge here is you got a home seller. And let's say the home seller says, you know what, I want to incentivize people to buy a home. I'm going to offer out more than the normal commission to get buyer's agents to come through here. Sometimes that will attract some people. Who's to say the seller can't do that? Like, that's the challenge that we're having here with this DOJ decoupling of commission issues. And there's so many folks that are, you got companies like Zillow. Like, what do they have to say about this? Their business is derived from buyer side business. So there's a lot of people that are set to lose here. And the challenge that I see with all this is it's not, I think the changes that are made, like you can offer out 0%, you don't have to offer compensation. That's fine, but telling someone you can't do something when it's their asset, is that violating rights at some level? Like, these are the things I don't know. I'm not an attorney, but if I'm selling my house, let's say my license expires, I'm out of the business. Why can't you offer a finder's fee? What's wrong with that? And it's no different than some other businesses that are out there, or how personal injury attorneys get paid. They only get paid if there's a settlement reached. It's kind of the same thing. So this is what could upend the industry, and I think listing agents are going to be okay. Ultimately, it's the folks that rely on that forced compensation. You might have some challenges if you don't know how to deliver the appointment or really communicate value, which is that's a whole nother problem.
But like, if it did start to seem as though more buyers were not having representation, if I was the listing agent and I knew I was essentially going to have to be working both sides of it in order to get the deal to the table, I think I would I'd want a higher commission than what I would do if I was just representing my half of it,
Right.
So you're going to ultimately be paying similar numbers anyway.
I would absolutely charge a higher commission
Yeah,
because
you're having to handle
both
all of it.
sides.
Yeah.
Right.
And potentially let them into be over there to let them into the house. Like,
right. You're going to be fielding everything.
Yeah.
Because you're, say it's one of these hot houses, you're going to be doing 50 showings, you're going to be doing, all the paperwork. And
right. I guess at that point I'm just moving in and
so ultimately the sellers will be paying a higher commission anyway.
right.
But again, then there could be conflict of interest.
Yep.
Representing both sides, or perceived conflict of
Right.
interest. Like, it's all about perception.
Yeah.
So, and this is where things get really sticky. If the seller perceived that you're representing the buyer on, more.
Yeah.
But you're not. But
Right.
they perceive that to be so.
Yeah.
That creates a conflict.
Right.
So you can have, potentially have issues.
Absolutely.
I see a lot of
Yeah. Like, I feel like things could get super
really
hairy.
crazy.
Yeah.
Well, and this is what the market was like before. This is why buyer agency was a thing in the first place. And there's a big economic impact here because, I mean, most buyers, I mean, they go like, they literally have like, all right, this is all my cash. I'm
Yep.
going all in on this house. And
Mhm.
if I can't get it for this price, I'm going to have to go buy something else. So there's a lot of challenges that come out of this. And what I'm not saying here is you should be forced to do it.
Mhm.
The option should be there if sellers want to, right?
Yes.
It's their house, it's their asset, right? You can sell a stock on your own, or you can hire a financial advisor. And there's a lot of ways to do these things. So that's what people aren't talking about. And unfortunately, their NAR's just done such a bad job lobbying against this. I mean, they were very arrogant. They didn't present the case properly. And now we've got this whole can of worms that's been opened up. And, the DOJ went back on a settlement where they apparently agreed to all this stuff anyway, which is a whole nother thing. So, with the election coming up, it'll be interesting to see what happens if this doesn't get resolved before then and who wins, because there was an administration change. Like, this is all the stuff that we're dealing with here. And so we know things are going to get upended. I mean, I would say unless something happens here, I wouldn't be surprised if they get decoupled. I mean, that's unfortunately the way it goes. So we got about 10 minutes left here. So let's say we're in a world where this happens. What should you do as a real estate agent? What should your game plan be? What are 2 or 3 things, no more than 3 from each of you here, we can come up with 3 together, that you should be doing to protect your business and build a moat around it so you're in business in 5 years? Because a lot of people, they just hope the phone rings. They don't have a business. They're like, oh, well, I'm going to do all these different things and we'll see what sticks. We know that doesn't work. What are you doing right now? What should you be doing?
I mean, I think that if something changes here, you need to be upfront with past, future, present clients about what the situation is. So, and then have that built into so they have that in mind as we're looking at homes, that this is now something that you're responsible for. The last thing you would want is for it to be some type of surprise at the end, or like when your estimated cost sheet, when you give it to them, like, oh yeah, and then here's my fee, and they're like, what? I'm sorry, what? So I think just getting ahead of it, that this is the situation, and I guess first and foremost, making sure they're aware.
Transparent disclosure is really important.
Yeah.
I mean, this is something that blows my mind. That if you don't know what the fees are, and there's a lot of people that don't know what these fees are, right? I mean, I'm talking consumers because their agent doesn't explain it to them. That's got to be number one. That's what the law says, by the way. Just a lot of agents don't practice the law properly. So I totally agree with that, Sarah. That's really, really important. And that's got to happen at like the first meeting.
Yeah. Or
like the second meeting at the work. Like, I mean, you have a conversation, you meet somebody, here's the call. Like, this has got to be reviewed. Totally agree with that.
And what do you bring into the table? What are you going to do to help them through this process? What is your value?
Mhm.
Do you negotiate well? What is your value? You have to be able to explain to your clients why this fee is warranted and what you're going to do for them and help them through this process.
Yeah.
And I think if you don't know how to do that and you can't express to them the process and what you're going to do to help them through, that's a big start. You better work on that.
Right.
And you better be confident and know what you're talking about.
Mhm.
Keep up with the data, what's really going on in the market, and be able to convey that to them.
Yeah.
Because I think it's so, there's going to be a need for representation.
Mm-hmm.
So they're either going to have you represent them or an attorney or somebody else.
Right.
But for somebody, especially a newbie buyer who's never been through the process, there's so much that can go sideways. We know that.
Right.
But what are they going to do? Prepare their own documents?
Right.
It's just, I think you need to be able to convey your value and your worth.
Right. And I mean, I think that there's also a lot of things that as agents we do that maybe we don't always like let the client know, like, also I'm doing this. It's stuff we're doing on the back end, but making sure they're aware of all of the things that we do to get you into the homes, get you under contract, keep you under contract, get you to settlement.
Sometimes keeping under contract is the hardest part.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Getting under contract is a slugfest. But that doesn't stop there.
Yeah, it doesn't mean that now you can
what's next?
Right.
Are we keeping in with the deadlines? There's deadlines within these contracts. If you miss a dedeadline, then you're out of contract.
Yeah.
And your thing is voided.
Right.
These are things that people don't know. Layman people, and they shouldn't know. Why should they know these things? Because you might buy a house. What's the average?
11.7 years.
Right.
Yeah.
So you don't go through this process once a year.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure there's situations where people do. But for the most part, people buy 1, 2, maybe 3 homes in their lifetimes.
Right.
So it's not things that they're going to remember.
Right.
And this is, we're the tour guides, but we need to be able to explain in detail and provide the data and let them know exactly what we do.
Right. And if you try to represent yourself and blow it once and lose your deposit money,
Ooh,
that's more than what you would have paid in the commission in many cases,
right.
So, just transparent and like, not to scare you, but things can go wrong. And,
Right.
we're here to hold it together and to represent you in a field that we work in every single day and not just, once every 11 years.
So I love what you guys are saying. Delineate your value. Here's what we do differently. Those sort of things. I think understanding all the cost. This is like mechanical stuff. The flip side is you got to get in front of your clients first, because who knows what other people are going to say to them about this. Like there's people out there right now. I've seen these happen. These marketing videos where, hey, you don't have to pay a buyer agent anymore. You can get away with listing as low as X%. I don't know that that's actually the best thing for a seller. I'm a big believer in presenting options. But this is what's happening right now. I've seen these videos. It would shock you who they are. And if you're not getting in front of, and there's nothing illegal about that activity, right? But that's a story for another time. I'm not going to get into all that. But if you're not getting in front of your clients first, or meet, because remember, over 70% of people hire the first person they meet with. So you've got to have your appointment down to that it's clear, concise, costs, value driven. And then you also have to make a commitment to, I need to meet with these people first. You never want to be coming late to the game because, I looked at it with the listing agent and the listing agent told me this. And you're done. It's over now. There's not that, oh, great, they can come use me and I still get paid, which I know has happened to a lot of people. It's happened to me before. Where, hey, I looked at this house, I want to use you to represent. That may not be an option moving forward. And we don't know how that's going to play out. So if you're not making a commitment daily to get in front of your clients, and you got to call your clients, right? So many people, they never keep in touch with their clients, right? They don't keep in touch with the people they know. You've got to be talking to people on a daily basis and making a commitment to getting in front of as many folks as possible to spread the word, whether it's one-to-many, one-to-one, calls, texts, emails, emoji exchanges, I don't care. That's going to be the most important thing here, because we're already seeing 10,000 agents a month getting out of the business since November. That number's not going away. And it's only going to get, I don't want to say harder, there's going to be a higher degree of difficulty to selling houses moving forward, because you can't just show up and think you're just entitled to compensation.
Right. Now, what I would be curious is if this does go through, because there are many, many, many other professions that also get paid on a percentage of different things or have set billable hours or whatnot. Could there be something that then, I don't know, goes to them? Could this spur into not just real estate commission lawsuits, but lawsuits for other fields?
Accountants have already gotten kind of hammered. And that's for different reasons. The problem with attorneys, because I look at attorneys as a lot like this.
Yeah.
You got to get an attorney to sue another attorney. So if you want to talk about a good old boys or good old, obviously it's men and women, but you know the term.
Right.
If you want to talk about a boys club or a club, it's very difficult to find an attorney that will sue another attorney.
Yeah.
I've heard this directly from attorneys, by the way, that are at very, high up in very well-known firms. I'm not going to name any names here, but I've heard this specifically, and it's one of those things where that's the obvious one.
Right.
And they collect way more than an agent does. You don't even know what their fees are. It's
Right,
very confidential.
And that's usually done not just now, with the exception of some of the personal injury things, or where they do only get paid at a settlement, but many of the other ones, you're paying an hourly rate whether or not it's successful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what happens. There's a retainer. There's all sorts of stuff, and that depends on the attorney and the case and everything else. Real estate agents, this is a black or white business. Either you sell the home or you don't. There's no in between. So sure, this could open that up. What I think real estate agents have themselves to blame here, though, because some of them, and most, how many bad agents are out there? You've been doing this long enough to know.
Yeah, there's a lot. Are you looking for a percentage?
But more than good, right?
Yes.
And they don't know how to fill out a fill in the blank contract, right? It's a fill in the blank. We're not writing this contract. They can't do the fill in the blank. They don't understand like questions to ask before you go under. I mean, there's such a lack of training, and it's not just the agents themselves. I don't even blame them in a lot of cases. I blame the leaders or the brokers are saying, "Hey, new agent, come work with me," and they don't do any training, right? Like, I mean, you're screwed, and so that's created this connotation of realtors don't know what they're doing, and then some of them are super aggressive. But attorneys are the same way. There's a lot of bad attorneys.
Yep.
There's bad people in every profession. I think the challenge is that commissions are now magnified, and this is an issue, and it's not going away. But I don't think as many consumers know about this like we realize. I mean, that's the other side of this here.
I think they'd be surprised, especially buyers.
Right.
If they hear that there's possibility they're going to be, on the hook for more. A lot of them don't know about the cost of title insurance.
Right.
And the prorated taxes that you have to reimburse the seller. I mean, there's a whole litany of expenses that
They
go
don't
into-
know about the costs involved in buying and selling.
Right.
And they rely on the MLS to pre-calculate them. And if someone asks you on the spot, you can't even count. I mean, that's a problem.
When they say, "Oh, I calculated it on the website," and I'm like, "No, don't no.
Yeah.
Let me send you a cost sheet.
Right.
It's way more accurate."
Right.
And
Exactly.
then they see the difference.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think overall, it's Mr. Ketchmark. He's quoted as saying that Berkshire Hathaway is the leader of the pack. It's much bigger than NAR. The money didn't flow to NAR from this conspiracy. The money flowed to the corporate coffers of Berkshire Hathaway. So this is all about money. And he also says, if you want to bring about change in corporate America, hit them in the pocketbook, and that's exactly where this is aimed.
Well, good for him. I mean, this is the case of a lifetime for him. So, real estate agents, you got to be ready. I mean, don't sit here and think this is going to go away like NAR said, because it's not, and you want to get ahead of it. So, with that in mind, that's it for this week's episode. You want to follow Sarah? She's at Ty_Ty Time. You can follow Stacy at the number 2 Mitchko. Those are both on Instagram. You can follow me at TomToole3RD. And again, we are streaming live every week on YouTube. If you liked what you heard, subscribe to the channel, click on the bell for notifications, and schedule a call with one of these two ladies with the link in the comments. We'll be back next week on Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM. Yeah.
The BAM webinar.
Luke Ackery's doing it. Aren't you an event with him? Well, I am. I'll let you guys know what it is. Or don't.
On Wednesday at 3.
Yeah, but I'm doing an event in May at his office in Conshohocken or
Oh,
something.
cool. Oh, that's awesome.
I had breakfast with him like over the holidays or something like that. He's a nice guy. He's very religious. I just question these religious people. Let me turn this off.
For the ones who work hard to ensure their crew can always